Today's guest is Master Gongsun. After earning a medical degree, Master Gongsun was ordained a Taoist priest in the Mao Shan tradition, then started his own lineage of Taoism called the Sweet Divine Tao, which emphasizes spiritual practices such as deep meditation, qigong, negong, Taoist internal alchemy, as well as knowledge of general spirituality and other planes of existence, such as the afterlife, the soul, and immortality. Welcome to the channel. I have to share with the audience how this kind of came about because this is a subject that I've never talked about on this channel before. I was speaking in one of my Q&As a while ago about how I wanted more diversity on this channel, but I just didn't know anyone. so, so I really wanted to bring more diverse practitioners on this channel. And so you had emailed me and said, hey, I would be interested in talking about Taoism and then also your own kind of flavor and version of it. And you've also brought up the idea that some of these principles of Taoism really align with chaos magic, which is something that I often speak on in this channel. So we're going to be talking about Taoism, his particular flavor of it, how it can converge with chaos magic principles. We're also going to talk about supernatural experiences and so much more. So Master Gongsun, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Would you like to just briefly introduce yourself and just kind of where people can find you and all of those sorts of things?
Yes, absolutely. My pleasure. Hello, Ivy, and hello to all listeners. I am Master Gongsun, and I can be found on all the usual social media sites, mostly YouTube, because that's where the majority of the viewership is. And I practice a type of Taoism, Mao San Taoism, which is known for certain supernatural practices, such as warding off evil. Later on, I can show you some props that I brought along. We have enchanted swords, we have magic mirrors, we have a talisman that I wrote myself, and it's called the Fu Zhou in Mandarin. And it's very related to the sigils that you would also create in chaos magic.
I love that you brought props. I didn't realize that you were bringing those, so I'm
Yes.
so excited to get
Oh,
into that.
I'm full of surprises. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. It's so great. And you just started, I know that you've been on YouTube for a little bit, but I think you just created your Instagram, right? And you're just now starting to, like, you have a website now. So if you want to talk about that a little bit and also what you kind of offer people, because I know you coach people as well.
Yes, that's right. I'm not that active on Instagram because I never really figured out how to use it. But I'm on Facebook as well, but mostly just active on YouTube and my own website. And about coaching, I help people with all sorts of different spiritual practices, such as meditation, life reading, divination. You may have heard of the Yi Jing or the Yi Ching, which is a book of changes. It's a very ancient Chinese divination manual dating back thousands of years. I could be found at the Sweet Divine Tao, sweetdivinetao.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'll have all that linked in the description box as usual so people can find you. Let's get something out of the way, though, that we briefly talked about offline. Let's talk about Taoism versus Daoism. So do you want to elaborate on that a little bit just to kind of alleviate some confusion for anybody listening?
The T and the D, I mean, the different spelling comes from the fact that the Chinese language does not use the Latin alphabet. So when the People's Republic of China was opening up to the West in the 80s, they were thinking about, well, if we welcome foreigners in, they're going to want to learn our language, and even if they're just visiting, they're going to need to tell the bus driver, which station they're getting off at, right? So, but they can't actually read Chinese, so we have to write it in English. So it's technically. Taoism technically is pronounced Dao Jiao in Mandarin, which means Dao means the way, and Jiao is a religion. But before, so this is called Pinyin, that's a system of romanization. Before, there was a system called the Wei's system. This is when missionaries visited China in the 1700s at the height of the Qing dynasty. And and I guess one missionary heard Tao instead of de. They heard a T instead of a D. So it's been known as Taoism for centuries. So I thought I would use that because that's what most people would be familiar with.
So you're really just kind of you're using it for relatability now because it's been established for so long. And so really people can say Taoism or Daoism. Maybe Daoism is a little bit more correct because that's always how I say it. But I'm glad that
Exactly.
you're clearing that up for us that we're going to be talking about the same thing with those terms. And you are a Taoist priest, right? So can you talk about that process of priesthood and also why did you switch? I mean, you were a medical practitioner and then you switch to becoming a Taoist priest. How does one do that? And what was the process?
Yes, certainly. So I went to medical school. I have a medical degree in MD, and but that's Western medicine, and I realize Western medicine is effective in acute treatments, such as when someone has a traumatic event and they need to go to the emergency room. But when it comes to long-term care, I realize there are other medical practices that could be just as good, if not even better. I'm talking about like long-term uh, illnesses, such as diabetes, for example, and that's where Chinese medicine comes in. And I also noticed that when I was, because I was an ER doctor actually, and when I was treating patients, there would be those with certain psychoses, and that could not be explained biologically. Sometimes there would be chemical imbalances, but there's always more than meets the eye. And then being of Chinese origin myself, I had grown up in Canada, back and forth between Canada and Hong Kong. And then so I made the decision to become a priest when I realized there are things that we cannot see but are still in existence and could be exerting an effect on us.
Mm. That speaks to my soul because as a like a healthcare practitioner myself was never a doctor. But there's so many rants that I could go on about Western medicine. I do think it's important, but it does dissect the body up into pieces and it's more for acute traumas. And that is something that is really frustrating that I saw time and time again in the hospital where we were treating just one little section of the body, but not looking at the body as a whole or looking at other components that may come in like energetic, spiritual, all of those things. And I understand Western medicine is for immediate care to get you to feel better in the moment. And it's very necessary for that. But for long-term care, like you said, chronic conditions and things of those nature, it's not supportive whatsoever. I mean, nutrition is never talked about. Doctors, I
Mm,
think, only get like one class in nutrition over the course of their entire
yes.
degree or something like that. I mean, you would know. So, and nutrition's such an important thing. So, yeah, I agree with you. I actually usually the doctors that I converse with now, they have training in traditional Chinese medicine because that is just what I prefer to be treated with. So, not
Oh.
saying, yeah, so I'm actually really, really interested in traditional Chinese medicine. That's something that I'm really passionate about. So, I think it's funny that you brought that up. But can you talk a little bit more about Taoism then? Because I know that our audience is going to have a wide variety of understandings of what that is. So, can you define what Taoism is and then also kind of talk about what Tao is in general, like the way of the Tao and those things that you had mentioned?
Yes, certainly, of course. Well, Taoism is, I would say, it is the science of the ancient Chinese. It began by observation because they saw all the patterns in nature, all the rhythms, all the cycles, how uh, autumn would turn to winter, and then winter would turn back into spring, and then the cycle would repeat, right? And then spring into summer, and they would repeat. Uh, the concept of yin and yang, of course, and I'm pronouncing it I guess, the North American way, but it's technically yin yang. But here, right? I mean, we have this here, right? There's or even on my hat here, right? There's a
Hmm.
yin, there's a yang, right? And that concept began when we realized there is duality in nature. I'll give you an example. I mean, one of the laws, Taoistic laws of the universe, is the great yin becomes little yang. So what does that mean? Oh, it means that, and this is just from observation of nature, it means that great yin is, and here's a perfect Western or North American saying, it's always darkest before dawn,
Mm.
right? Because around what, 4 or 5 a.m., it could be very dark, and that's great yin, right? Because yin is supposed to be dark and yang is light, right? So, and doesn't it become little yang because when it's darkest, it becomes, and then you see the sun popping up at like 6 a.m., right? So it started from like naturalistic observation.
Hmm.
Uh, and then it gradually began to also become a religion, and there are traditional Chinese folk practices which are intermixed with Taoism. And so essentially, and it's also the only religion that is native to China. I mean, of all the great religions of the world, only Taoism is native to China. There's also Confucianism, which is not really a religion, but more of a like philosophy. And Buddhism is, of course, from northern India, which I know you used to practice because I remember
Yes.
your videos, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
practice a branch of Zen Buddhism, and then my mentor
Mm.
was also very unorthodox. So there's many different branches of Buddhism, right? So I don't want people to misconstrue it and think that it was Zen Buddhism specifically. So it's a
Mm.
little bit
Okay.
different than like
Yes, yes,
more
that's true. Yeah.
traditional. Yeah, and especially
That's
because
true.
he was very, very unorthodox. It was very much in line with chaos magic principles. So if that gives you kind of an idea, but
Yes.
yeah. And there's also, so from my understanding, because I have a very rudimentary understanding of Taoism, but I was telling Master Gongsun offline that every single time I read something about Taoism, it perfectly aligns with how I see the universe. And every time I take one of those long quizzes online that tries to help you find what religion or spirituality you identify or whatever, I do it for fun, just to see. It's always Taoism every single time. So very rudimentary understanding, and that's why I'm very excited to have this conversation with you, just for personal reasons. But aren't there concepts like Wu Wei, and please correct my
Mm.
pronunciation if that's not correct, and this harmony of nature, and how do we kind of understand that and really incorporate that into our daily life, like from a practical standpoint, I should say.
Yes, well, absolutely. Well, first, I want to address the fact that Taoism is the chaos magic of the East. And because I stumbled upon your video and I was already a Taoist, and I realized, hey, wait a minute, all these concepts in chaos magic, for example, the like taking what works and discarding what does not, right? The sigils, charging the sigils, right? Having your intention in the sigil. That's all Taoism. Like that's what this is actually. This is my intention written down as a talisman. It's just called something differently. It's called a fu zhou or a fu in Mandarin, but it's the same thing. And I will explain it bit by bit if we have time for that later on. But it's even the construction is quite similar to certain chaos magic principles. So I was very struck by how similar it was, and definitely, if you had found Taoism first, you would be both a Taoist and a chaos magician at the same time because it's quite complementary.
I think you're right. And you know what? That might be my next move, honestly.
Sure, why not? Why not? Chaos magic is all about that, right? It's all about
Yep.
it's also very compatible with Chinese religions because there's something called syncretism, where when a new religion entered China, instead of trying to get rid of it or to expel it, they would try to harmonize with that religion,
Mm.
right? So that's also very much in alignment with the principles and practices of chaos magic.
Yeah, I had no idea that they aligned so well, but it makes sense to me because for me, going from Zen Buddhism to chaos magic was effortless in the way that I was practicing. And so, yeah, I think after this conversation, I'm going to have to dive a little bit deeper into this. So, actually, if you want to take a moment to explain that sigil, please do. I know that I'm very interested in that, and I'm sure everyone else is dying to know.
Oh, sure, sure, no problem. Well,
And I acknowledge it's not actually a sigil is probably not the right word, but you know what I mean.
well, close enough. Yeah, it's interchangeable. Yeah, because words are just because actually, if we that brings me to a very good point. The the Taoist Bible, I mean, like the Christian Bible has only like one book, right? I mean, well, like Old and New Testament, I guess two books, right? But in the Taoist canon, there's over 1,500 books that are considered canon. And the main one of which is the most famous one you may have heard, the Tao Te Ching or the Tao Te Ching,
Hmm.
right? And the first line of the Tao Te Ching is, I'll say it in Mandarin first and I'll translate it. 道可道非常道，名可名非常名. And it means the Tao that can be Taoed is not the eternal Tao. And whatever name you have, that is not your that there's not your eternal name. It means that some things are beyond words. So whether we call it a sigil or talisman, it's interchangeable, right? As long as we get the meaning, as long as we get each other, right?
Hmm.
That's the most important part, right? Anyway, so I'll do a quick explanation of this. This is called the Fu Zhou, and for some of the our listeners and our viewers out there, they might have seen Hong Kong cinema back in the 80s. It was a craze for what they're called hopping zombies or hopping vampires. There was a film craze for that. I don't know if you've seen it, but in the East we have something called a jiang. It is a corpse that hops because of rigor mortis. And these haunted my nightmares when I was a kid. I was shown these movies by my parents because that's part of our culture, right? That's like Chinese culture, right? And they're terrifying. So if there are any viewers who want to Google what a hopping corpse is or jiangsi, it is terrifying. But anyway, so I actually got into one reason I thought being a Taoist priest would be cool is because in these films, there would be a Taoist priest whose job would be to counter or to defeat the hopping corpses, and they would stick this sigil, this talisman, to the forehead of the hopping corpse, and that would deactivate them right away.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's our lore. It's East Asia's full of lore like this.
Yeah. That is
Yeah,
it feels very folk magic too. Where you
it
take,
is. It
yeah.
is. Yeah.
No,
So I'll
that's great.
explain it briefly. Yeah, and
Hmm.
also explain it briefly. The reason these Taoist priests of the Mao Shan tradition usually are able to stop the hopping corpses or to deactivate them, neutralize them, is that the sigil is actually a request to the gods for help. So essentially, we have this is called, I'll read it aloud in Mandarin and then I'll translate it into English.
Hmm.
This is feng. Feng means like kindly. Chi means to activate, right? And then we have three ticks here representing the three. Well, there's so many gods in Taoism. It's like a almost like a polytheistic, but also it's monotheistic because they're all divine manifestations of the Tao. But anyway, these three here represent the three pure ones. It's called Sang Qing, Tai Qing, Yu Qing, and these are just helpers of the creator, basically. And here we have we're also asking for help from here it says Mao Shan Si, meaning the lineage founder of the Mao Shan tradition, right? And here it says 出入平安at the bottom, and it means it's just like it means coming and going in peace. So this talisman, I have it with me when I go out because I don't want to be run over by a car, right? It is or to be hit by a bus, right? So this is a peace sigil or a peace fuzhou or a peace talisman.
Mm. I'm so glad that you brought this. I didn't even realize that you were going to be bringing this today, and I'm so glad you did because I think people don't realize that sigils and talismans have such a place in what you do. So, are there a lot of different things like this? Like, when we think of Taoist magic, I think what comes to mind often are energetic practices like meditation and qigong and things of that nature kind of rolled in. But I want to maybe identify some misconceptions because there's a lot more to the magic that you weave. I don't know necessarily if you would call it magic or not, but can you elaborate on that as far as like talismans go and what a practical practice looks like?
Yes, I would call it magic because, what is magic but our own willpower to affect change, right? Magic is just
Yeah.
our own will to make changes in our lives. So this, I mean, and yes, about in regards to your question, there are literally millions of these talismans. So like all you have to do, for example, I mentioned the hopping corpses. If you want to deactivate them, all you got to do is like you got to write something else instead of the peace talisman. You write down, deactivation of hopping corpses, right? And you stick it to their foreheads and then they stop, right?
True.
So yeah, so very much, yeah, it is magic. And I would say the same I mean, I would say the same of any priest, who is praying to their God, right? It is a way to affect change, whether it is to remove something unpleasant or to reward them with something good.
Can we derail a little bit from the questions that I had originally sent you? And
Sure, sure.
let's derail for a second because I really want to talk about spirits a little bit more because you mentioned that you had paranormal experiences or one in particular that really kind of changed your perception. So do you want to share that a little bit and talk about some of the either the paranormal experiences you've had or perhaps spirits you've encountered and worked with? This is just a free open forum, whatever you want to share regarding that.
Yes, certainly. I can tell you a bit about my first supernatural encounter, which could be a long story, but so I'm going to try to summarize it. But I won't leave out any of the juicy parts. Anyway, so I go to I'm in Cambodia. This is like years ago, and I not just Cambodia, but rural Cambodia. And I had never been to a rural place. And we're talking like dusty fields everywhere, dust roads, dusty trails, ditches, farmland, and no street lights. So it's really rural. And not to mention, it's an undeveloped country. So I had never been used to it. I'd never been to the countryside, so I wasn't used to it. We're talking like squat toilets and outhouses, like stuff like that, no running water. But I thought it would be fun. So I went to my good friend's house, and then he said, you got to be a bit careful though, don't go out when the sun goes down because there are things here in the countryside that I've seen that my sisters and brothers have seen, my relatives have seen multiple times. So I thought he was half kidding. Maybe he wanted to scare the city slicker who had never been to the countryside. I mean, it happens, right? Anyway, so I'm working late at night in the farmhouse. Essentially, it's kind of like a treehouse, a traditional Khmer Cambodian style residence. And I'm interpreting actually. I used to be an interpreter. I was interpreting from Mandarin to English and vice versa for a U.S. company. But I would work at night because the U.S. is like on the East Coast is 12 hours behind Cambodia time. Anyway, so people in the countryside they keep dogs. And as you know, any dog lover would know, the dogs don't bark if they know you. They bark only at strangers, right? And that's why people keep dogs because they want to like ward off like thieves, but also uh, demons, supernatural entities that would cause us harm. Anyway, 11 p.m. There I am working, and then I heard the dog bark really loudly, like woof 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 woof, right, and nonstop, nonstop. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's happening there? So I go out onto the balcony with my little flashlight, and then I see the dog at the gate. And it turned out that the dog was just barking at someone walking past, like a passerby. So I'm like, okay. Uh, like, I don't know why I went out to begin with. I'm a naturally curious person. I mean, most people would have ignored it, right? I mean, because the barking goes away after a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I go back to work, and an hour later at midnight, the dog does the same thing again. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it's another passerby. But I'm still curious because who's walking around at midnight in the Cambodian countryside, right? And then I see the dog at the kind of like the northwest corner of the yard, and there's a fence here. And on the other side of the fence, the dog was barking at something. So this was on the neighbor side of the fence, and this entity was standing. So the fence was to his right, and there was a tractor on his left. So he was standing in a very awkward position. So no human would stand there at midnight, right? I don't know why. Like so. Anyway, I show my flashlight at it, and keep in mind it's pitch black, right? So I can't see anything. So, thank God for my flashlight. And I shone my flashlight on it, and I see it's whatever this thing was, it was covered, the upper body was covered in a blue cloth, the lower body was covered in a white cloth. I'm thinking, what the hell is that? I'm scratching my head, like I couldn't figure it out. Like, is this what my friend warned me about? Like, why is that standing there at midnight in such an awkward position, too? And keep in mind, the dog must have just noticed it because he was the one who alerted me, right? Because dogs don't bark at things that are familiar. They only bark at things that they deem a threat.
Right.
So I'm thinking, oh, okay, so the dog like knew that it was some sort of threat. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe like I'm like dreaming, I'm hallucinating, right? But then I don't drink alcohol, I don't do drugs, I don't even drink caffeine. I don't drink coffee. So I don't go to sleep that early usually. Midnight is really early for me. So I'm thinking, you know what? Let's just turn off the light, turn on the flashlight, shine on it again. So I turn it off my flashlight, and then I wait 5 seconds, I turn it back on, and there it was. And but it's not looking at me. It's kind of like I'm staring at its profile. Like from a distance, it looked like a department store mannequin,
Absolutely
but it's
not.
not moving. Yeah,
Absolutely
exactly,
not.
exactly, exactly. But that's the closest natural word I can use to describe it. Like, if it's not supernatural, then it was, you know, something from the department store. Anyway, so I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay, it's still there. I'm not dreaming. Like I can differentiate a dream and reality. I mean, it's not that hard, right? The physical plane, the mental
Sure.
plane, we can all differentiate that, right? It's not that hard. So I sh shut off my flashlight again, and then I turn it back on. It's still there, and that's when fear took over. I can admit that we are all afraid of the unknown. We're
Hmm.
afraid of what we cannot understand, what we cannot fathom. So I'm thinking, oh, you know what? I think I've had enough. Even the dog has stopped barking by now. Let's just go back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just go back in. Mind my own business. I'm gonna, make myself available. I'll start taking calls and continue my interpreting. Let's just, let's just talk to
Mind
my
my
friend in
own
the next morning about.
business.
Yeah, exactly. Because it felt like I was disturbing him.
Oh my
He
gosh.
didn't mind. He didn't mind. It felt like I was the one bothering him. He was.
Wow.
I don't know what he was doing. He was standing like in a 90-degree angle facing away from me. I could see only his profile. Anyway, the next day, I tell my friend, he's like, "Told ya, I'm not surprised." And they're like, "What was that?" And he's like, "It is something called an Asura guy." So I described what it was, and that is in his language, and the Khmer language has similarities with the Thai language. And apparently, it was. And I looked it up. It is some sort of demon, someone who used to be human, but then practiced the dark arts to the point where they are not recognizably human anymore. And but this person is dead, but he used to be alive. That's what my friend told me. And there's
Wow.
more than that. And there are these yeah. And apart from that, just briefly, all the ghosts he's seen around the village. Because keep in mind, there was a Khmer Rouge in the 1970s who perpetrated mass genocide against the Cambodian people. Like people were killed, and then their bodies were haphazardly thrown into a ditch without proper burial rites. So
Mm,
there's lots of what we call in Taoism, we call them yuan hun, and means aggrieved spirits
mm.
who are attached onto this earthly realm and refuse to leave
Right.
because they have unfinished business. Yeah.
You mentioned offline, and maybe we can bring this into the conversation here, but you mentioned offline about how there's so many countries in Asia that are just so magical and
Yeah.
spiritual and haunted. Do you want to
Hmm.
talk about that a little bit more? Would love to hear about it.
Yes. 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 So I'm deeply into a Hong Kong TV show. It's not really a TV show. It's actually it's not fiction. Rather, it's like more of a documentary series where it's called 怪谈, and it means strange talk. And it's where they go around like the all of Asia and they film supernatural events. And I've seen every episode, and I actually learned a lot about Taoism that way before I officially
Mm,
converted and became ordained. But anywhere where there has been great emotion before death, especially like negative emotion, we're talking like fear or anger, like there's bound to be residual spirits. And Asia has had a lot of that because it's a very ancient continent with some countries have very sad histories. We're talking like mass genocides, massacres in World War II, the Rape of Nanking in China during the Second World War, Japanese invasion of a lot of Southeast Asia because they were everywhere. And so anyway, the talk show, the hosts and the camera crew, they go around and film all this. So I would strongly recommend the show to you and to our viewers and listeners if they're interested in
mm,
in Asian supernatural lore.
mm.
Uh, yeah, and the show has subtitles as well. So for those who don't understand Chinese, could also read the English. But
Yeah.
yes, Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia are all very haunted countries. They all have their own lore. They've all had really great histories, but at the same time, a lot of tragic events have happened. But that's pretty much every country, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I was saying offline how Asia is a continent I have not explored yet, and I'm really excited to. I mean, Europe, North America, Central America, and then South America next year for me. But Asia is the one that I have not gotten to yet, and I'm so excited to country hop a little bit and experience all of those
Well, if you ever
places.
come, yeah,
So,
I mentioned, yeah, if you ever come, it'd be my pleasure to show you around and take you to some places where I'm sure you would be very interested in. Yeah.
yes, yeah, I want to see that thing you saw with the weird little cape
Yeah.
thing with the white and the
Oh,
blue.
yeah, yeah. At first I
Terrifying.
thought it was at first I looked it up. I thought it was some sort of like Malaysian, or what was it? You know how uh, death shrouds, when
Mm.
someone passes away, they're wrapped in death shrouds. At first, I thought it was that,
Mm.
and that exists in Malay lore, actually. But I ruled it out actually because it was not. But there are so many of these. Yeah, there are lots. There are lots. There's like I'm sure you remember the pretas in Buddhism. Do you remember that? Where hungry ghosts, where
Okay,
you have
vaguely,
a
because
very
this
long
was like
tongue.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
okay.
Yeah, the ghosts with a long tongue, and they're
Yeah.
constantly hungry, but they're insatiable. Nothing they eat would ever make them feel full.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
The lore is really rich in history and lore and culture.
right. There is so much. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I want to talk about your flavor of Taoism, because that's kind of where we really wanted to get into it today. Because you were ordained a priest through a specific tradition, but you no longer practice that tradition, right? It's the Maoshan tradition, I believe, but then you created your own sweet divine Tao. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more and kind of how it differs?
Well, both Mao Shan and my own lineage, we focus on the supernatural and and how it could actually be healing. Actually, I'm all about healing and getting better. And because I myself, I have some like physical ailments such as like really stiff muscles, carpal tunnel and stuff like
Mm,
that. And I find that meditation and spiritual practices do help alleviate the pain and the stiffness, I mean. And so Maosan is very much because just like actually let me begin again. Just like other major religions, like Christianity has its own sects and different like branches, like Protestantism, right? Protestantism, Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, right?
mhm,
So does Taoism. It's mostly broadly divided into what we call Quanzhen and uh, which is it means a complete reality, and it is essentially just reading scriptures. Actually, I call it the boring branch of Taoism because you're just reading reading books all day, essentially.
sure.
Whereas then we have Zheng Yi, which means Orthodox unity, and that's the branch that Mao Shan falls under. And Mao Shan specifically is in charge of, well, not in charge, but they're known for creating the powerful talismans, magical talismans, and you can tell which sect uh, wrote which talisman depending on like what was written on it and how it's constructed. But certainly mine will be focused on healing and also on reconciling some of the contradictions. There are some contradictions within Taoism itself and Chinese folk religion, which may or may not be Taoism. Sometimes it's really hard to parse through and to see like which one is which.
Hmm.
But mine is very much focused on the healing power of the divine.
And there's a goal to it, right? Is there, well, actually, let me ask you, is there a goal? Yes? Okay, go ahead, talk
Yes,
about that. Yeah.
yes, there is. I'm so glad you asked this. The goal of Taoism is to become, in Mandarin, it's called a Shen Xian, and in English, it would become, it would be called an immortal. Uh,
Yes.
by which I mean, and this is the equivalent, I would say, of like a Catholic saint, uh, where where you're dead, but you have risen or developed in the spiritual hierarchy to the point where now you serve the Tao. So people, just like Catholicism, people could pray to you to intercede on their behalf for blessings, for peaceful like comings and goings, and essentially we aim to also break free of reincarnation. So that's that cycle. So that's one similarity Taoism has with Buddhism.
Mm,
We both believe that
mm,
and that unfortunately this earthly realm is not a great place. And so we're both pessimistic. Both Buddhists and Taoists don't think it's a wonderful place. There are like billions, an infinite number of much better places.
sure.
Uh, yeah, like for example, there are nine heavens in Taoism,
Mm.
and each one is better than the next or the last.
So, would you mind maybe clearing up a couple misconceptions? Because I think when people think of Taoism, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I always hear people thinking it's a passive practice, that it's basically just letting whatever take the wheel, letting life happen to you, just kind of like accepting. But really getting into Taoism, it's a lot more disciplined than that. There's a lot of meditation. There's more I don't know, more ascetic practices to it. So would you mind clearing up some misconceptions that you see about Taoism? And it can be addressing this one or other misconceptions you see.
Absolutely. Yes, I can see why people think Taoism might be passive, but it's not. It's actually about biding our time. It's both because Taoism has both, right? On my channel, I always point out the yin and the yang and how it's two sides of the same coin. I'll give you an example, actually. I can use, well, I was a history minor, so I still remember a lot of stories about history. In both Chinese, ancient Chinese history and ancient Greek history, there were times when lots of these city-states were at war with each other. So now uh, I'll give a quick example. Athens, the city-state, was at war. No, actually, no, never mind. Corinth, let's just say Corinth was at war with another city-state. I think it was Melos, right? And some of you ancient Greek history experts, please feel free to correct me because I don't have the strongest grasp of ancient Greece. But essentially, like they were on the brink of war, and then they both appealed to Athens, right? Please help me, right? Please help me. Uh, and whoever got the help of Athens would win. So essentially, uh, Melos like was very strong, right? They let's say they were the yin. I mean, they were the yang, and they were, they're just gonna say, well, whatever happens, we're gonna fight, we're gonna resist it. But then Corinth did the yin thing, and they said, well, you know what? If we're gonna get overpowered, why don't we just surrender? We'll become their vassal, bide our time, and then when we're actually stronger, we can actually fight back and break free,
Mm,
right? So first you practice the yin, and that's why in the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu, who is the writer of the Tao Te Ching, he is now in he's now immortal. He's been canonized as a saint in the Taoist canon. Anyway, that's why he wrote that yin is actually more powerful than yang because when you do yin, you're submissive, right? It's associated with like the female, the submission with light, with water, right? So, but it's actually more powerful because if you submit, they won't see you as a threat. And once Athens inevitably declines, we can take your revenge. You can break free from being their vassal after, and that way you will survive. But the other one did not. Melos resisted, and you know what happened? They were completely slaughtered. The people of Melos, and I don't think it was Melos actually. So I'm gonna have to. I'll stand corrected by one of your listeners, I'm sure. But I don't
sure.
remember which city state it was. But one of them resisted and got slaughtered. Their women and children sold into slavery. Men were slaughtered, and they didn't survive. But Corinth did because they were
Mm,
more yin,
mm,
right? So what I can say is that we have to practice both. We be yin in order to surrender and bide our time, and then we be yang whenever the time is right.
mm. I think
Yeah.
that's a great way to explain it. And I keep seeing little glimpses of I don't know if it's a ritual knife, a dagger, what you would call that, but do you want to share your tools a little bit of
Oh,
your
sure,
practice?
sure,
Let's talk about
sure.
tools of and I almost said craft, but this is not a craft. Tools of the practice.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but it could very well be a craft. You'll see that we Taoists, don't mind like the right wording, as long as it's like similar enough, actually.
Sure.
Because some things are beyond words, right?
Yes.
In the Tao Te Ching, they say, how do you explain a sunset to a blind person, to someone who's
Mm,
never seen, right? Or how can you describe music to a deaf person, right? Like that's beyond words, right?
yes.
But anyway, we make do, right? Anyway, so these are enchanted swords given to me by my master upon completion of the course and ordination. In ancient China, they would use this is called a coin sword. I'll explain one by one. The coin sword is made of coins from ancient China. This is just a replica. These aren't actual coins, but it's a replica of the sword. And this was used for uh, to defend yourself against the hopping corpses that I mentioned earlier, the jiang. Let me explain it briefly. When someone dies in a state of yin energy, and if they did a lot of yin things when they were alive, we're talking about like immoral things, murder, theft. If they're just a horrible person, they will become a hopping corpse after death, and they will wreak havoc on the living.
Hmm.
So a coin sword is supposed to keep us safe, and is usually made of peach wood because it gets very specific because peach wood has these like anti-demon properties. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's a coin sword. This one here, you'll notice, has a talisman written on it. It's similar to, I'll just hold it side by side for comparison's sake, right? It looks similar to the writing, and that's because this talisman has empowered and charged the sword. And you'll see the holy symbol is actually called the Taiji Tu in Mandarin, but in English it's called the yin yang symbol. And you'll notice one thing, this the edge of this sword, the tip here is not sharp. Why is that? Right? Because it's not meant to harm people or living things. It's meant to protect yourself from evil supernatural entities that would harm you.
Hmm.
Right? I actually sleep with it under my pillow.
Oh,
Yeah.
fascinating.
So yeah, especially if I've encountered anything weird that day or anything supernatural, it protects me.
So, are these tools pretty common amongst Taoist practitioners that dabble a little bit into the occult? Does everybody seem to have similar tools, or does it vary a lot from person to person?
Oh yes, yes. Actually, like a because I'm a wandering Taoist priest, but for those who have been assigned a temple, they have like 1,000 times more tools than I do. They have bells. They have like paper figures of people. They have lots more talismans. Because they're also helping members of the public. You'll see it if you come to Hong Kong or Taiwan or anywhere where there are lots of Taoist practitioners. They go to their local priest for like exorcisms or for like blessings or good fortune and all that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So, can we
And
call these, what would you call them then? Would you officially call them ritual tools, like Taoist tools of magic? Or I guess, what do
yes,
you refer to them as? Okay, just want to make sure that
I
that
do.
terminology
I
is
do.
correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
That's
good. Especially because, like, Catholicism, for example, can be seen as very magical by the way that they do
Oh, it
their,
is.
yeah,
Prayer
but they wouldn't
beads, the
say that.
rosary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, but they
exactly.
would not call it magic.
No,
They would
no,
not.
no, 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 they would,
So,
but it is. It
yeah.
is actually. I was this close to converting to Catholicism,
Oh,
actually.
really? Oh,
Yeah, I
interesting.
know quite a bit about it actually. I still
Wow.
remember all the prayers. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and yeah, they are right. They light their candles. They have prayer beads, the rosary. It's very like, body of Christ. Like it's all very magical. Like,
sure. But yeah,
yeah.
they don't call it magic. And it's similar in folk magic practices as well. Sometimes what they do, they would not consider it magic or witchcraft or, anything of that nature. They call it something completely different.
Hmm.
It just is. It's just something they do.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
why I was curious from a Taoist perspective if you would call that a ritual tool of magic or if there's some sort of, I don't know, some people don't like that term at all. So thank you for clearing that
Yes.
up.
Well, oh, certainly. Yeah. As long as, I mean, yeah, we Taoists like we don't mind terms. I mean,
Yeah.
if all just refers to the same thing anyway, it's this, and this helps me with my practice. It helps me to affect results, right? You can call it a tool, like and I should also explain what this is. So here is the I don't know if you're familiar with the trigrams, right? These are
Mm-mm.
like wind, lake, and all the different like, for example, the three straight lines here, unbroken lines is the divine yang, and that's called in Mandarin it's called the qian, which refers to the sky, the father, actually, the
Hmm.
divine yang, and the three broken ones. Let me see where it is down here. Refers to it's called Kun in Mandarin, and it refers to the Mother Earth, right? So
Mm,
we have the Father God and the Mother Earth, and this has actually the Chinese calendar on it, the old way of telling time. Like actually, this is called the Well, here it has the calendar on the outer edges here. Inside it has the 12 earthly branches and the 10 heavenly stems. It gets very like astrological. It's actually about astronomy and how Taoism first started by observing the heavens and
sure.
nature
Sure.
cycles. Yeah, and I just want to point something out here. This mirror here is called the Zhao Yao Jing, and it means a mirror that reflects that shows your true form, actually. So if you are in some sort of like haunted house, or if you suspect someone isn't who they say they are, you hold this up to them, and if you look in the reflection, you can see what their true form is. And in movies anyway, I don't use this much, but in movies, where like there's a famous book called Journey to the West, and it's actually about, just briefly, about how it's a classic of Chinese literature. It's about how the Monkey King and a Buddhist monk and all his disciples, they go to India to get sacred scriptures, Buddhist scriptures, in order to bring salvation to the people of China, right? And then, but then this monk's skin is actually, if you eat him, he's supposed to bring you longevity. So if you eat him, you become immortal, right? So they're always trying to catch him. All these demons are trying to catch him. So they use this mirror to see demons in their true form. So if you like, there's like I don't know, like an old man here, oh, he's pretending to be an innkeeper. But if you hold up the mirror to him, it turns out, hey, he's like the white bone spirit, or like the spider spirit, spider demon. He's trying to eat your master, right?
Wow.
So anyway, that's this mirror. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
A
Thank
lot
you
of
so
lore.
much for a lot of lore, definitely. Okay, well, I do have a question from a channel member, if you don't
Mhm.
mind us switching gears a little bit, because I
Sure,
always
sure.
ask for those watching, I always ask my channel members with upcoming interviews if they have any particular questions for the guest. So I actually have two questions, but we'll just go with one for now. So they are asking, I imagine there are a lot of misconceptions and generalities regarding Taoism that do harm to the practice. I was wondering if he'd be open to discussing any he's heard of or discussed with others. I think we've kind of already hit on misconceptions. Are there any other that you can think of that we haven't already talked about?
I haven't actually. I can't think of any off the top of my head,
Okay.
but I do know why there are misconceptions. It's because unlike uh, certain other religions, for example, Christianity, Taoists do not evangelize. We do not actively try to convert other
Mm,
people to the religion, because we recognize religion is such a personal, private thing that you must come to your own conclusion of what you want to follow, what you want to believe in, right? You
mm,
cannot be forced to believe in it. So like that's why we don't have Taoist missionaries.
sure. Sure. No, that makes
Yeah,
sense. And I think
which
we,
which is a double-edged sword. Yeah, I mean, because then these misconceptions could arise if you don't know much about it, right?
sure, sure. Well, now you're on the channel telling everyone else, so hopefully that clears it up. All right. The other question that I have for you is, from what little I understand, Taoism can be divided into philosophical Taoism or religious Taoism. Does sweet divine Tao align more with the philosophical or the religious, or is it a combination? Where would you place it on the spectrum?
Great question. Well, I would say a little bit of both, but more religious than philosophical, because philosophy is great, but unless you apply it, it's not going to have much effect on your own life. So you have to read it, you read the scripture, then you got to apply it. So what I do is that I focus a lot on the practice, but the practice is based upon a very solid foundation of philosophical Taoism. I mentioned that the two branches of Taoism, called the first one's called the Tianzhen, which means the complete reality, and that's the one that reads all the books. I call it the boring one because, well, who wants to sit in a dusty room all day reading, right? Right?
Sure.
Like, let's go out and practice, because we're all here on this earthly plane for a reason, right? We're all here to experience things, right? So I emphasize the practice a lot more, because if we didn't, and we experience it, all this to grow in order for our souls to grow, in order to achieve the Taoist goal of becoming an immortal.
Mm,
If we were already perfect, I mean, we wouldn't need to be here, right? We could read all day, but we would just be reading in one of the nine heavens of Taoism, right? We wouldn't have to read here on Earth, right? Because Earth
mhm.
is meant to be a school, and the best way of learning something is by doing. I mean, if you want to hire someone to build a boat, would you rather hire someone who's only read about boat building but's never actually built one? Or would you rather hire an illiterate man who has spent his whole life building boats but he can't read, right? Like, give me the boat builder any day,
That is so in line with chaos magic. That is
isn't it?
chaos magic at its
Yeah,
core. We don't need to
yeah,
have our head in books. We need to just go
yeah,
in and do.
yeah.
It's very
Exactly,
practical. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I have a controversial question that just popped up in my mind, and if you don't want to answer this, I'll edit it out. So don't feel pressured or anything.
Well,
But is Taoism for everyone. Because in a world where we now have conversations about cultural appropriation and how frustrating it might be for someone to claim that they're a Taoist when maybe they don't know the first thing about it, I guess do you even care? Is it for everybody? Do you want to speak on that?
Yes, I do actually. I'm not too concerned about cultural appropriation. I think that what we have, all these practices here, it's available to all of humanity. As long as we're pure in our hearts and we actually want to follow that particular path, there's nothing wrong with like anyone becoming a Taoist, as long as they are interested and want to follow all the all the guidelines, all the practices. Like it's perfectly fine. I want to emphasize the unity of humanity. I mean,
Mm.
the it's all of these practices are a part of humanity's legacy, our ancestors' gifts to us. So as long as we're not doing it for show or as long as we're not superficial about the practice, anyone can become a Taoist.
That's fantastic. It seems very, very open-minded, and I appreciate you for being very open-minded as well. I always want to ask that because I know that I receive so many comments like that whenever we're talking about a new practice that the majority of people here in the United States, for example, may not be well versed in. This is a question that comes up all the time. So I'm really glad that you were able to answer that. So thank you. And then to just kind of close this out, I know we're wrapping up our conversation here, but I had one final question for you. What is one Taoist teaching that you feel the modern world needs right now? Like one piece of wisdom that you want to impart?
Oh, that's probably the toughest question
I
of the
know.
entire interview because there's so much at the same time. I would say this, given the recent events of the world, and I mean, I mean, I pay attention to the news. I think that we should be in the world, but not of it. I believe it's a verse in the Bible, but it's also very much in Taoist scripture as well. But at the same time, we're here for a reason. We should pay attention to what's going on. So, from what I've seen, the whole world is restless. It's very contentious. Everything's controversial, especially, I mean, lately, the world is in a state of flux and unrest, especially in the US. For those of us who aren't Americans, we are very much affected by what happens in the superpowers. Right now, that's China and the US. And what they do affects the rest of the world. Lately, with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the conservative commentator, the ICE shooting that I heard about, just a lot of violence. It's not just the US. 'Cause, like it happens in other places of the world. Like for example, here, Thailand and Cambodia had a border skirmish not too long ago, and they were actually firing like missiles at each other. Uh, People were displaced, those who live along the border,
Hmm.
and President Trump offered to step in and mediate actually. And anyway, so everywhere, like there's lots of unrest, and I think it stems from a lack of understanding. Like we have to understand that the way we are today is a result of number one, our genetics, number two, our upbringing. And no one's going to be the same. I mean, there's a concept called existential loneliness because no one is exactly like us, even identical twins, right? Like they might share the same DNA, and maybe we're raised in the same household, but they turn out differently, right? So all of that, like all the unrest, I believe, stems from a lack of understanding of other people, right? We need to make time to talk to each other to understand where we come from. You may not necessarily agree with what they think or say, right? But at least we know where the other side is coming from. And Taoism is quite clear on this. We abhor violence. We're like what the shooter did. Uh, and I'm not just talking about Charlie Curley, any shooter who just shoots someone because they disagree with their opinion. What he did was very much against the Tao, and that's Taoists would never do that. And Taoist teaching is very clear. We have to act in alignment with the Tao, and that brings me to you mentioned about like Wu Wei, like it's called deliberate non-action. Essentially, don't do anything that is not natural, right? Don't uh, swim against the current. Don't do uphill climbs. Don't do anything that is not within your nature, because that will make you out of alignment with the Tao, and that will impede your spiritual development.
Hmm. I think that's such great wisdom. I said that we were going to close out this conversation, but then that just kind of brought up one more thing for me.
Sure.
When we're talking about kind of going with the current versus against the current, I don't know why there have been times in my life where I've really wanted something to happen and I've really pushed for it, and it felt like I was constantly going against the current. And it wasn't until I switched my mindset and really started going with where the universe wanted to push me, everything just opened up. Opportunities opened up, and it wasn't that I was
Mhm.
lazy. I wasn't being passive. I was still working very hard for the things that I wanted, but it was effortless at the same time. I mean, I was still
Yes.
working hard, but it was effortless in the sense that the universe was just handing me things on a silver platter. And that's kind of what you're talking about, is moving with this current. And I've noticed
Mhm.
that just in my own life. So now this really, really makes me want to get into Taoism a little bit deeper, because that's exactly how I move through life now. If something doesn't feel like, if there's a lot of friction, I'm going to listen to that and I'm not going to push so hard, because I have experienced trying to push through it and I can never break through to the other side, it seems. So I don't know if you've experienced that in your own life, or if you wanted to speak on that at all.
Oh,
Go for it.
absolutely. You're absolutely right about that, because it's supposed to be effortless. I mean, if you make too much of an effort and you're not getting the results, I mean, that's a sign from the universe. The Tao is saying, don't do it. You're not meant to do that. We all come to this earthly realm with a purpose, with a destiny, right? It's called yuanfen, or 命运 in Chinese, and it essentially means the same thing. Uh, your life has been preordained by the universe. And sure, we have free will, but our free will is limited because most of us do what comes naturally, as we should, right? Like, for example, I was good academically. I was good at history, psychology, but you know what? I'm horrible at throwing a football. So I should not want to have a dream of becoming an NBA superstar or the star quarterback.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
we all have to act in alignment with our God-given gifts,
Hmm.
right? And we do believe in a creator God in Taoism. We just don't believe in one that judges us after death and assigns us to heaven or hell.
Sure.
Like, but we don't have time for that in this conversation. But
Yeah.
there are many gods in Taoism. But sure, the universe, was created. It's called the Wuzi, the primordial chaos, right? Out of
Primordial
that,
chaos. Oh, that
yeah,
brings us back to chaos
yeah,
magic and working with the
exactly,
primordial.
right
Yeah.
there, right there, exactly, right, yeah, right
Wow.
there,
Wow.
yeah.
That is really great. Well, thank you so much for coming on and speaking about all of this. What are your upcoming projects? So, if somebody wanted to learn a little bit more about Taoism, and specifically your lineage that you're creating, the Sweet Divine Tao, do you want to talk about that a little bit more and what you're doing with your website and such?
Yes, I am in the process of creating a course for the Sweet Divine Tao. This is it's a work in progress, and if they're interested, I can give you the website to the Google Classroom. They could sign up there. And of course, I discuss scripture on my website. I mentioned that Taoism has over 1,500 Bibles, if you will. Books are considered canon. So I've only done three of them so far. So it would take me several lifetimes to go over all 1,500, but I'm currently talking about the Wenzi, which is the further teachings of Lao Tzu, the creator, the writer of the Tao Te Ching. So feel free to subscribe, and we'll get into the meat of the scripture.
Sure. Thank you so much again for coming on here and talking about something that I have been dying to talk about forever, but have had no one to speak to about it. And you are so knowledgeable. Your background is so interesting, from medical doctor to Taoist priest. I mean, that is a very stark difference. So it was really fantastic to have you here. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Don't forget to check out all of his links in the description box below, and I will see you all in another video very soon. Bye, everyone.